Hi, here we go again. We're still in interpersonal effectiveness skills, and at the very end of the section, the first section, which is on getting your objectives. And I already taught you right down to the final step of that, with the exception of one handout. It's just a very valuable handout, even though it's not starred. And it's, again, like one in emotion regulation, when what you are doing isn't working. Just so you understand what that is that it's absolutely directly related to a handout we went over earlier at the beginning of the module on factors what is it called? Factors that interfere? Factors that interfere basically with getting your objectives, with being effective. Yeah, factors in the way, handout number 2. This is really like another version of that, checking in now that we've done the skills for a while. It's saying, if you're still having trouble with doing the skills, consider the following possible factors that are interfering, and it helps you go through, I think, in a way that's more friendly than the earlier handout. Do I have the skills that I need? Or am I missing some of the skills or not knowing how to do them? Do I really know what I want in this situation? Are my priorities clear that way? About relationship versus self-respect versus objective, for instance. Are my short-term goals getting in the way of my pursuit of long-term goals? In other words, is trying to take care of things right now that feel more urgent, interfering with going after what I really want. Fourth, are my emotions getting in the way? Are my emotions get triggered by asking or saying no? So intense that it makes me not effective, and therefore I either avoid doing that or else I'm not effective when I do it. Next is, are my worries and my assumptions and my myths, in other words, my cognitions and beliefs, are they getting in the way? Do I have beliefs about emotions, like the consequences of expressing myself, the consequences of asking for things, the thoughts about not deserving that things go my way, etc.? And there are several types of these that are listed. And finally, is the environment actually, even if I do everything else perfectly correctly, is the environment getting in the way? In other words, are there other people who just are not going to give me what I want, regardless of how skillful I am? If so, it's good to know that, so you can know how to proceed. All right? Good module, good things. Okay, next part of it, next section number 2 of this module is handouts for building relationships and ending destructive ones. This is an addition to the manual compared to the first edition, and yet very important one. It has the overview of this building relationships and ending destructive ones is going to be finding and getting people to like you. Just this huge issue. Being mindful of others once you are in relationship, and ending destructive or interfering relationships. Okay, so you go over this, seeing this is the headlines of the module. Now, notice that none of these are going to be starred, because if you only have 6 weeks to teach, there's a good chance you're not going to get to any of these. But these are valuable, these are useful, and sometimes you really want to skew your group to get to these because people really are concerned about these things. So if you're talking about finding and getting people to like you, what's nice about this is there's just, it's a series of prompts for discussion about what is it you need to do to get to meet people and to find people who like you, so that you can build relationships. And it's just sort of a set of social factors that make a difference in relationships. I once read about these and others in a nice popular book called, what was it called? Click. People who click with each other. And the book ends with identifying a set of click accelerators, and they're very similar to these things. Like, what makes you more likely to find somebody you like and that likes you? First, looking for people who are near you. Proximity matters. And everybody sort of knows that, but it really matters. I mean, in the studies that have been done, social science studies, such as if you're in college, who are you likely to become friends with? Well, the people in your dorm, people in your hallway in your dorm, the people near you in your dorm, in the hallway, like the next 2 or 3 doors down from yours. Sitting in classes at college, the person you happen to sit next to in class on a regular basis. So proximity really matters. So putting yourself in a position where you're around certain other people on a regular basis somehow in groups or in activities, looking for people who are similar to you, who have similar attitudes, similar interests is another click accelerator, another factor that you might want to consider, being around people who have similar interests, and therefore skewing where you go and where you hang out for that. Work on your conversational skills, being able to hang around people and make small talk could be quite boring for many people, uninteresting, even adverse, create negative feelings, but actually it can be very helpful in getting to know people. There's no other way to kind of like move from small talk to deeper talk. But another thing is to skillfully self-disclose. That the way deepening friendships develop is one person self-discloses a little more and then the other person does, and it becomes reciprocal. You don't want to self-disclose way past the other person or way less than the other person, but to match them and up them just a little bit. Don't interrupt people, and sometimes we don't even know we do that, but if you can get feedback in a group about that, and learn about enough things so you have some things to talk about. I mean, some people just feel they're impoverished in terms of ideas of what to talk about. So you want to think about whether there's ways to just, without, selling your soul to the devil or taking a ton of time, like learn things that are going on that might be of interest to people. Express liking. We often like the people, we think like us. And so it may be worth it to say, I really like you. I like spending time with you. This was really enjoyable. Whereas that you might overdo that or underdo that. So learning that's another thing that's a focus of this class. Join an ongoing group conversation. How do you get into a group? And this is a very interesting thing. How do you do that? I mean, some people, myself included, have a block about that. If there's a group of people talking, how do you know if they're open to having somebody join or whether you should even try? And what Linehan does here is that she uses some social science research about how do you judge whether a group is open to a new member, and there are several criteria. And if so, what is the best approach to joining a group? How do you break in without being obnoxious or objectionable? And then there's a handout, and there's another one like this later that is a nice one where you're actually, after you've gone through these, it gives you some choices like check the more effective responses if you're trying to get people to like you. For instance, stay out of conversations other people are having so people know you're respectful. Is that better? Or politely ask to join in conversations so you can meet more people. And you can each of these can become discussion points. Okay, the second part of this is to be mindful of others. Friendships last longer when we are mindful. So we go over observing, describing, and participating, and the mindfulness skills. So to observe is really to observe other people, to be mindful of them, to focus on them when you're with them, to show curiosity, to show interest, to let go of a focus on yourself and really tune in to other people. That's challenging for some people who are used to entering into conversations by talking about themselves. They aren't necessarily meaning to be obnoxious, but that's what they've learned, and that's what they think, and that's what they've relied on, and it's really hard to easily change that. So it's practicing new ways of being with people, being open to new information, noticing if you have judgmental thoughts about other people, seeing if you can let them go for the time being. Okay?